Johan Swinnen, thank you very much for speaking to us. And I know that you've been speaking on the panel today. You are the Managing Director of CGIAR. And you had a discussion with like minds. I don't know, you can tell me. Was there a discussion? Was there a debate? But there were talking points, there are views. People have a different lens, depending from what part of the debate they come from. For you, I think there was an agreement overall that action needs to happen. It needs to happen now. The window is open, but is closing. But it is hard to do. And the devil is in the detail. If we get into the weeds of it, to excuse the pun, that is where the real difficulties lie. Is that a fair assessment of what you heard and what you said?
I think there's consensus, I think, or broad consensus on the importance of the issue, okay, the urgency of things that need to change. I think there was less consensus depending on whether you come from the people who are actually on the field right now and have to make the changes versus other people who think we need a fairly radical transformation of our production system and consumption system as well. So I think it's once it gets down to the details about how you're going to make this transition, that's when I think the differences of opinion come in. The point is also it's a very difficult problem to implement, you know, to make the changes work. And the reason is that you have something, I'm an economist, okay, and we talk about externalities. So if you do some activity, it also affects something else and you do not, and you are not rewarded for that. So you kind of, it's not so much that you really purposely ignore it, it's just not the focus of your attention. And so things like greenhouse gas emissions are an example of this, also the biodiversity loss. It's not that anybody tries to kill the biodiversity, it's just the nature of the system that we have right now. And so to correct that, okay, you need coordination because one farmer himself or herself cannot do this, so you have a whole group that needs to work together. And there's also problems of information. Okay? If you cannot really measure the damage which is done, it's hard to reward farmers for it. And then the other point is if you need to, for example, give tax exemptions or something, give subsidies for something, that also means you need to measure it, okay? Because you can link then the reward to the output. And these things are difficult in these cases.
So the panel was talking about how can nature-based solutions drive resilience and sustainability in the agri-food system and the alignment. How do we do better with the alignment of the incentives to accelerate change? I think everyone agrees that change does need to move at speed. Measurability seems to be a key sticking point, as you've just said.
Sorry?
Measurability,
right.
You know, in terms of looking at this. Do you have a how-to? Do you have some ideas, some practical, pragmatic ideas of how we can unlock that so that we can measure and then we can incentivize and we can do it at the right place at the right time?
Yeah, I think two important elements there is essentially if you see the advantage have been made in digital technology, okay, better information systems, just the technology that has developed, that has been really a revolution in that the last decade. I mean, everybody kind of know that. But that can help us, okay, because if you have better technology to measure and to provide information, that also helps to overcome some of these problems. I think there's really a lot of potential there to do better. The second one is that one needs a coordination and collaboration in this thing. And this can happen, for example, if it's, for example, watershed management, the whole community has to be part of it, okay? If it's a large area, you can have farmers cooperatives or farmers group coming together. But often what's also very important is that you see this from a value chain perspective. And that means you bring in, this could be NGOs, this could be private companies, this could be large-scale food operators, okay, who can connect with the farms, and actually by their size, they can help some of the coordination there. And I think that in the successful cases that we see developing now, these types of, this is organization in different institutional arrangements, but you need some of that to make it happen.
A lot of people have commented today that, you know, whether if there are barriers to change, one would be the money, but the other is probably politics.
Yeah, politics, and I think also psychology and culture to some extent, you see. So people are, that's what you often see, people who are in the field, who have to operate, have to make a living, okay, they understand the arguments, okay, but they have to make sure there is bread on the table, okay, next week and next month and things. If they make an investment, we had the story today, somebody said, as a farmer, I'm happy to make this investment, but it's going to take 10 years before my trees are sufficiently developed to reap rewards. So who's going to cover that period of 10 years? Maybe there'll be another war somewhere, prices will go up and down. So the stability that is required, the risks which are involved, I mean, that's important. And so we cannot just see this as kind of a minor side effect. It's really at the heart of change, I think.
How important is it to come to the forum today and to hear, you have the economist's voice, but to also hear from consumer to producer to politician and of course to farmer, all of those voices? How important is the debate at the forum?
I was actually very impressed. I followed the forum for many years. I always look at the reports and things like that, but it's really by being in the room here today that I fully realize the breadth of opinions that are being expressed here. I think that's extremely important because there's a lot of, I don't know whether it's ideology or at least ideological arguments, let me put it that way, but also different interests in this game and bringing them together on the stage. I think also the level of the speakers, I mean, I have top speakers and basically leaders of companies, organizations, of the political world, policy world, is quite amazing, I think. So I think it's great. And
it helps to accelerate change finally? To have these voices come together?
I think being forced to be on the panel together, right? You listen to each other more, and I think I also felt that the nature of the exchange was very, people said what they thought, okay, but at the same time in a way that opens up possibilities, I think, for furthering the dialogue, and if that helps, these events are very worthwhile, I think.
Thank you so much, Johan. Enjoy the rest of the forum today.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.